Thrilling tales of software development, the eighth man. Gathering requirements is hard. I was doing software development for this manufacturing company, and they just bought a new punch clock system for their factories. Employees could clock in, they could clock out, track overtime. This got employees paid. And that's important because employees that don't get paid file union grievances and they don't come to work. And if employees don't come to work, then product doesn't get shipped. And the only thing that a manufacturing company cares about is that product ships. So this punch clock is incredibly important. Every layer of management is involved in this in some capacity. And so when I get a project request to make some changes to this system, I start to get a little bit nervous. You see, this job is sort of like being a tailor. Our customer saw a pair of pants on the rack and said, I like that cut, I like that color, I'm going to buy them. And now they're coming to us because they actually need these pants to fit. Sometimes they walk into the store and they're like, well, my budget's pretty big, and they buy pants that are huge. They could use these as sailcloth. That is actually not so bad, because you know what? It looks terrible, it's tricky to put on, it's hard to wear, it's uncomfortable, but they work as pants. Rarely, once in a million years, they get a pair of pants that are just about the right size. We might take the hem up or something, but it's in the neighborhood and we don't have to do a lot of work. But sometimes they buy their pants off of the kids' rack. You couldn't fit 2 fingers in these things. No amount of spandex is going to help. And now they're calling in the developers to hack this pair of pants apart, grab a bunch of our own fabric, and try and stitch together this pair of Frankenpants that, if we are lucky, covers their junk. Walking into our first meeting with the customer, we had no idea what kind of pants they just bought. The meeting went a little like, well, we've got our new punch clock system and we are pretty happy with it. So far so good. This is exactly what I wanted to hear. But we have a problem with the core. A problem with the core? It can't handle the eighth man. It's fine, except for the core. This is where I start to panic a little bit. But I get the user to explain. Core. C-O-R. The call-out report. The call-out report doesn't do the eighth man. For a second, I'm feeling like I just dodged a bullet. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't have 8 people on this call-out report? Well, we use this report to decide who we call for overtime. You see, every employee has a job code, like laborer or plumber, and what we do is we sort them by their name so that we can just cycle through that list so that each person gets 1 day in each cycle. Okay, that makes sense. So what's the problem? Well, it doesn't handle the eighth man. Who is the eighth man? Oh, no one. No one is the eighth man. Yeah. So there's no eighth man on the report because the eighth man doesn't exist? Well, there should be an eighth man. If we have 7 people in a job code, say 7 plumbers, then when we cycle over them, the same person gets the call for overtime on the same day every week, which isn't fair. So our solution is we add an eighth man to the list. Okay, I think I'm getting this. You pull in somebody from a related job code or off of another shift? Do you double count somebody? No. We put in the eighth man. Right, but who is the eighth man? Oh, no one. No one is the eighth man. Right. So there's no eighth man. Right. Okay, I'm not seeing the problem. It's not giving us the eighth man. Who doesn't exist. Finally. Okay, if it's the eighth man's turn for overtime, who actually gets the call? Oh, the first person in the list gets the call for overtime. Aha. So the eighth man is really just the first man. No, we have an eighth man. Who's no one, but if no one gets the call, the first man gets it. Right. So for all practical purposes, the first person is at the beginning and the end of the cycle. I don't think... It's the same thing. It just seems like repeating the first man in the report would be more obvious. But our report goes up to 8. They promise us they know who they're going to call if the eighth man gets picked for overtime. So we go back to the office and we work on their core. This is part of a huge project, and it's one tiny little slice. So there are months and months of project work that are all attached to this, but we're just working on this tiny little piece. We run our piece through QA, it goes through UAT, it gets deployed into production, people start using it, and time elapsed, it is 1 year later. And then I get a call for another project. The pants don't fit. The call-out report is wrong. If there's a 7-person team, what we have to do is we have to repeat the first person at the beginning and the end of the cycle. It is way more obvious that way. Gathering requirements is hard.